Sam Rising stuff last year with Utah? 3 months of pretending he was questionable with a torn ACL? Ridiculous.
It's a lot of gray right now when it comes to this stuff, and we really are. When people say we're in like the second or third inning of sports betting, that's why I agree, because there's so many of those situations that are very, very difficult to explain to a novice.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
You got to get more athletic and better defensively, right? You got to get better shooting. And if you can do those two things and hope that Darvingham takes the next step, if you bring him back, they can be better. But if you don't do that, you must more than anything the Lakers, you must get rid of Rob Pelinka and get a better basketball guy.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's hour number 2, live right here on this Friday on the early line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. Donnie Rightside is here. I am Ben Stevens, and joining us from the jump here in this second hour, it is Jo Madden. To look around the Stanley Cup postseason, another thrilling doubleheader last night in the National Hockey League with more in store, setting the stage for the weekend as well. Jo, as always, we appreciate you waking up early with us here on the early line.
Oh, it's the best time of day to be up. So thanks you guys for having me. And I know as hockey fans, everyone's super excited for these games tonight and probably a little tired from watching those games last night because they were absolutely adrenaline filled.
Thrilling to the very end, including in Carolina, Jo, where we go to overtime for a second consecutive game between the Hurricanes and the Rangers. Game 2 featured 2 overtimes. It was over rather quickly in the extra session last night in Charlotte, or in Raleigh, excuse me. But Artemi Panarin scores the game winner for the New York Rangers, 3-2, as the Rangers go into Carolina and win on road ice. Jo, the Canes were a -170 home ice favorite last night. We expected, with the change of venue in Game 3, for Carolina to pull off its first victory of this second-round series. That did not occur. What does it show you about what the Rangers are pulling off here in the postseason?
This team is poised to absolutely win the Stanley Cup. They're playing with so much chemistry out there on the ice. Their kill is being phenomenal. They held the Carolina Hurricanes last night to 0-5 on their power play. And yes, they weren't able to convert on theirs either, but this is something the Carolina Hurricanes have been able to do all season, is convert on their power play. So for them to have the 5 opportunities and not be able to get things done. But last night, it really came down to Igor Shesterkin again. He was so phenomenally strong in Game 2. He brought that into Game 3. He stopped 45 of 47 shots on his net last night. When we look at the physicality between these teams, Carolina was actually the more physical team. They were able to get more hits out there. But the Rangers just being able to pull things together and get it done. And you talk about Panarin, the Breadman being able to get it done. Lots of people saying that was a little bit of luck because it was a changeover in transition. And I understand that, but still, at the end of the day, the Rangers able to do it. Undefeated now in the postseason, you guys, 7-0 in the postseason. The President's Cup trophy sure isn't looking like it's cursed them at all.
No, it certainly doesn't, Joe. And you take a look at the game flow last night. You see the goal early by the Carolina Hurricanes. Okay, we're back in the series. Then they're down 2-1 late. And then you get the late goals like, oh, my goodness, we can finally rescue this series, only to get beat in overtime in a 3-0 lead, which is pretty much going to be insurmountable. If we're taking a look at the Conn Smythe Trophy odds, yeah, they're going to change on a day-to-day basis, particularly with Igor Shesterkin at a plus 550 price now, moving to the favorite over McDavid, McKinnon, and Makar at this point. Do we agree, Joe, with the price points right now where Shesterkin is at a plus 550 as the favorite?
I definitely agree with Igor Shesterkin being the favorite here. At plus 550, I think there's so much value still on him. Once a goalie is hot like this, they phenomenally stay hot. Igor Shesterkin is used to this postseason pressure as well. He's not going to tire down the stretch here, and I do think he's your best chance here of winning that money because at plus 550, there's value, and he's just way too hot right now to fade.
I got a little bit too excited earlier in the show, Joe. I said that Igor Shesterkin has had a streak of 40 consecutive playoff games holding his opponent to 3 goals or less. That's 30 straight playoff games at 3 goals or less, but dating back to the 2022 Stanley Cup playoff run for the New York Rangers. So, Joe, obviously the Rangers up 3-0. They'll have an opportunity to pull off their second consecutive sweep to start off the postseason against the Hurricanes tomorrow night in Carolina. Now, the Canes do remain a home ice favorite for game number 4. So, Joe, how long does this series go? Are we going to see a sweep this weekend, or might we return for a 5th game to Madison Square Garden?
I could almost see that 5th game coming, you guys. I would love to see the New York Rangers get the sweep, but a team with their backs against the wall like the Carolina Hurricanes, this team, if they can lock down on defense and not allow the New York Rangers to be able to score. They did hold the Rangers as well to no power play goals in the last game, which was phenomenal because this is a New York Rangers team that has been able to convert on those power plays during the postseason. So I do think Carolina is a scary team in game 4 in elimination situation. I don't want to bet against them at home. I'll be looking at the total in the next game, taking it to that under. I really do think defense will be the style of the next game, expecting that lower scoring, cautious game. It's the only way Carolina can get the win. Now, could the New York Rangers come out and get the sweep? Absolutely. This either finishes in 4 or it finishes in 5. I don't think it goes any deeper. I can't see some miraculous comeback here for the Carolina Hurricanes. This series, I think, is pretty much done.
Yeah, you take a look at no margin for error now there for the Carolina Hurricanes, one of the favorites to win the Stanley Cup, now on the brink of being eliminated in 4 games in round number 2. There was a doubleheader last night on the ice, and from the Western Conference, we watched Edmonton have a big lead and blow it only to get beat. You saw the Stars last night have a monster lead of 4-0, and before you could blink in the third period, that game was 4-3, but the Stars hold on to even that series against the Avalanche. Tough times there for the Avalanche looking to go up and say, you know what, let's steal this game and go 2-0, but now we got a series now as it heads back to Colorado.
Yeah, this is a super exciting series, and I do think this series continues to be a high-scoring one. We've seen both of these games, Game 1 and Game 2, go over that total. The difference last night for the Dallas Stars was their ability on special teams. They were able to convert on that power play, went 2 for 5 on the power play, while really killing off the Colorado Avalanche. They held the Avs to no power play goals, and they had 3 opportunities. So special teams won it for them last night. We look at those goaltenders. Jake Ottinger was nice and strong, 28 of 31 shots on goal. He did save. Georgiev, on the other hand, he only stopped 26 of 30. We know that's the weakness of the Colorado Avalanche, and I think the biggest surprise for me was the huge playmakers here for Colorado were really shot down by the Dallas Stars last night. We saw Nathan McKinnon hold to only 3 shots on goal, Cale Makar as well. So that's not what the Colorado Avalanche need for success versus the Dallas Stars. They need their huge stars to be able to step up. They need to get past this defense, and they need to start off fast because, you know, we saw that game last night. They started off slow out there. Dallas got the lead. Dallas came out again strong in that second period. And if they play like that, they had 4 unanswered goals before Colorado decided to, you know, turn things on. The energy we had in that third period was the energy they needed to in the first, and they just didn't bring it.
It has been a series of runs in these two games between Dallas and Colorado. Of course, the opening game of the series, the Stars jumped out to a 3-0 lead after one. Colorado scored 4 unanswered to win that opening game against Dallas. Last night, of course, things got a little bit dicey in Dallas with the Stars up 4-0 before Colorado scored 3 unanswered in the third, only for Dallas to edge it out with an empty netter late there at the end. So now, Joe, we go to the Mile High City tomorrow night, where the Avalanche return home after stealing one on the road in game number 1. It's pretty much a toss-up from the odds makers, a virtual series price pick'em between the Avs and the Stars. Which team do you have more confidence in this series?
It's Colorado, especially as Colorado returns home. I do think they can pick up the next win, and I do have more faith in them in the series here, as long as their big playmakers do come to play. Returning home to the Mile High City, we know they have the advantage, the leg up in that situation. And I just look at this team. I do think they have the talent on both sides of the puck. It's goaltending. It still comes down to me for Jake Ottinger has been fantastic for the Stars, but Colorado needs to step up. They need to get their special teams going in game 3 here, and I think they can do it. But this is going to be another game to the over and another game you want to live bet, because these teams aren't going to play in situations where one team gets completely blown out. That empty netter last night, it came in those last seconds. So it's a hard one to look at that line, because it really was. It didn't count.
Yeah.
5-3
for sure
was really forced the game.
I hear you. 2 games last night, 2 more on this Friday. Joe previews the doubleheader now.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Draisaitl could easily, at plus money, get the first goal, the second goal, the fourth goal. There's a few guys here. Maybe the prop betting market is not a bad way to look here.
Clippers over the Mavericks. If I would have told you that score before the game, knowing that Kawhi Leonard wasn't playing, I would have really figured it would have been the other way around. But the NBA is just crazy.
In-game live, all access, only on SportsGrid.
DraftKings making a progressive move, I think, that most other companies are also going to do or have done in the past. Adding someone from the government, or someone you would say in legislation, to become their responsible gaming leader here. And in this case, her name is Lori Kalani.
And it'll be interesting to see if other companies try to follow suit in terms of hiring former lobbyists to head responsible gaming.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
It's a Friday doubleheader in the Stanley Cup playoffs on the ice, and Jo Madden joins us for a second consecutive segment to break it all down. Joe, let's dive right in. We changed venue for the first time in the second round series between the Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers. To Beantown we go on this Friday. The Bees won game number 1, 5-1. Florida responded in game number 2, 6-1 with a ton of fights and penalty minutes and some bad blood between these two sides. For game number 3 tonight inside TD Garden, a minus 125 money line favored number on Florida. The road team favored tonight in Boston, a total at 5.5. What do you expect for game number 3 tonight in Beantown?
I was actually really shocked when I first saw this line for the Boston Bruins being the underdog at home, because we know all season long the books love to make them the favorite, especially at home. And I do think that plus money is attractive on Boston, but the biggest question mark for me is which Florida Panthers team will we see? Will we see the Florida Panthers team in game 1 that was a little rusty, or will it be the team in game 2 that just came out flying on the ice, able to dominate? And that's the team I really do think we get. So digging more into the lines at minus 125, I do think the Florida Panthers are the right side in this one. I don't think the Boston Bruins are going to go away quietly. I do think they have an opportunity to win one of these games at home, but I think Florida, with the momentum that we saw in the last game, will come with that momentum again in this one. Now, an interesting bet I did find over on FanDuel was the goal in the first 10 minutes. And normally, you guys, this is really juiced. It's only minus 134 for the goal in the first 10 minutes of the first period here, which I was shocked by, because that's normally a minus 190. Now, the Florida Panthers will want to get off to a hot start. And I look at how many penalties there was between both of these teams. Both of these teams are going to have power play opportunities in that first 10 minutes. So I love that goal in the first 10 minutes here.
That last game that we watched here, a couple different things I want to ask you, Joe. Number one, Swayman has been tremendous throughout this playoff run so far, but he got blown away a little bit in the previous game. Does he bounce back in this environment? And also, we saw that bad blood spill out late in that game with a 5-goal lead with multiple guys and basically 5-on-5 fighting. How does that pertain to this game in Boston? And also, do you think Swayman bounces back?
Okay, question mark for me is, will it be Swayman hitting the ice, or will they go to Allmark? Now, in that last game, Allmark came out and he took 10 shots on goal. He allowed 2 goals in there. So who are they going to go to? It's the biggest question mark for me. With that goaltender uncertainty, it really does push me more to the Florida Panthers. And you talk about that bad blood. These two teams don't like each other at all. Brad Marchand out there on the ice, he is so heated. He's going to get in that box so much. I expect these two teams to drop the gloves pretty quick versus each other. You talked about all 5 of these guys fighting on the ice. We're going to see more of that tonight. This is going to be a very physical game out there. If you're looking for players to score a goal, look for those power play goals, unless it's Brad Marchand. I'm not taking him for anything, because if he's going to be in the box way too much tonight. But those power play goals are coming. We know in the regular season and during the playoffs, Sam Reinhart's been absolutely phenomenal on the power play for the Florida Panthers. So I do have him circled tonight.
Interesting stuff all the way through. I can't wait to see how this actually plays out, Joe, because I love to see that momentum swing. And we know in Boston, yes, they're worried about the Celtics, but also their beloved Bruins. Let's take a look at a doubleheader tonight. Also, Edmonton and Vancouver. If we're lining this game up, FanDuel overnight, Joe, priced this at a minus 146 here for the Edmonton Oilers. That has now dropped down to a minus 130, and a total that we all love here in Edmonton games. 6.5 for a playoff game. What are we looking at tonight between Edmonton and Vancouver?
Well, I can't take this one to the under. I really do think this will be a higher scoring battle. Again, we saw game 1 finish 5-4, and both of these teams really putting their heart into it. Everyone that went to sleep in that second period, seeing Edmonton up in that game, saw Vancouver was completely done. Vancouver's ability to fight back and never give up in these games is second to none. We saw it in the regular season. We're seeing it in the playoffs here. And I do expect Edmonton to get off to another fast start, but there's question marks on if Leon Draisaitl will be out there on the ice tonight. Without him out there on the ice, I can't back the Edmonton Oilers, even at this price. I think Vancouver at home is still being disrespected here, and I will be jumping on them. But I do think Edmonton first period, I expect the best out of them in that first period. You can hit them up on the money line, or even the puck line, laying the half a goal in the first period, get some plus money, because I do think they come out extremely strong right out of the gate. And just like they did in game 1, they love to come out and play what I love to call punch in the mouth kind of hockey, where they come out, they get that goal, and then they try to protect that lead. But without Leon Draisaitl on the ice, this is going to be a battle for them, because we saw that momentum shift when he left the ice in the last game. And I think this injury is bigger than they're really saying, because Leon Draisaitl has never looked like that sitting on the bench. He tried to come back out on the ice. He looked bad. He did make it back out on the third period, but I think there's something really going on. And be careful with Connor McDavid tonight, because he was held to 0 shots even on goal in game 1. The Vancouver Canucks defensively are just limiting him completely on the ice.
Edmonton was up 4-1 in the final 7 minutes of that second period, and then the Canucks scored 4 unanswered to win game number 1, 5-4. We expected this series, at least from the odds perspective, to be a pretty easy ride for Edmonton. Was not the case. I think Donnie cut my Wi-Fi, by the way, as I was about to bag on Jeremy Swayman, who is DRS's guy, Joe, in the idea that Linus Ullmark could play tonight for Boston. All of a sudden, I freeze and I'm out. One final minute here, Joe, in this segment with a refreshed listing of the Stanley Cup odds that sees the New York Rangers now as the favorite. 45 seconds left in this segment. Where do you think the value lies in the NHL's Final 8?
You look at it, the Florida Panthers are in second. There it will be the Rangers and the Florida Panthers that face each other. So between those two, I have to give the edge to the Rangers right now with how they're playing. That would be an epic matchup if we had it, though. Bobrovsky versus Igor Shesterkin. And then I think it comes down to the Avs and the Canucks. And when we're looking at the Avs and the Canucks, the values on the Canucks, can a Canadian team win the Cup? They absolutely could at plus 1,400 with the thought of Demko coming back. I like the value there.
A Canadian team has not won the Cup since 1993. 2 left standing, playing each other in this second round series. Jo Madden, we appreciate the time as always. We preview the doubleheader in the NBA up next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Draisaitl could easily, at plus money, get the first goal, the second goal, the fourth goal. There's a few guys here. Maybe the prop betting market is not a bad way to look here.
Clippers over the Mavericks. If I would have told you that score before the game, knowing that Kawhi Leonard wasn't playing, I would have really figured it would have been the other way around. But the NBA is just crazy.
In-game live, all access, only on SportsGrid.
DraftKings making a progressive move, I think, that most other companies are also going to do or have done in the past. Adding someone from the government or someone you would say in legislation to become their responsible gaming leader here. And in this case, her name is Lori Kalani.
And it'll be interesting to see if other companies try to follow suit in terms of hiring former lobbyists to head responsible gaming.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
A doubleheader on the ice, a doubleheader of NBA playoff action as well on your Friday. What could be better in May than this much postseason action? We take an early look here on the early line to the doubleheader of Game 3s that we have tonight in the NBA postseason. We changed venue for the first time. First up in Indianapolis between the Pacers and the New York Knicks. Then we go to Minneapolis where the T-Wolves head back home with a 2-0 series lead over the Denver Nuggets. But we start in Indy. Of course, the story of this game, the banged-up New York Knicks. Jalen Brunson missed the entirety of the second quarter of game number 2, did return in the second half. OG Anunoby leaves the third quarter early after a masterful performance to begin. A left hamstring injury. He is out tonight for game number 3. And as Dr. Donnie told you yesterday, hamstring injuries don't all of a sudden become better. He might be have his status a little bit uncertain for the remainder of this series. But without OG Anunoby tonight, and Indiana returning home to Indy, the Pacers now a 7-point home favorite in that 0-2 hole, hoping to get their first victory of this set in game number 3.
Yeah, and I'm buying into the Pacers, even at a -7 right now, because the status of Jalen Brunson, that is the key here. If he's not going to be 100% and he's ineffective, what I mean by that is he's usually getting his shot whenever he wants it, Ben, 25 plus a game. Let's just say that dials it back to 15 or 16 where he's more of a facilitator tonight. That's going to kill this team. And also, OG Anunoby, fresh off of a game where he was absolutely dominant coming into his own here in the playoffs, is now not going to be around not only for game 3, game 4, even at least game 5 at this point. So you're going to have to survive and advance probably without him. Now, granted, you still have that 2-0 series lead, and that's what's most important. Even if they lose both games here on the road, you still come back to the Garden, 3-game series. 2 of the games will be on your home court advantage. You should still be able to take care of business here. But having said that, we're not worried about taking care of business, Ben, in game 6 and game 7. We're worried about game number 3 tonight. This should be a stone-cold Pacers win, even though if you go to the FanDuel Sportsbook and see the percentage of bets on the spread, 7 out of 10 tickets still coming in on the Knicks, because most people looking at that line, that's ridiculous. As long as Brunson plays, they'll be fine. They'll be able to cover. Maybe so, but I don't think we're getting 100% Brunson, who's questionable for this game. So clearly, that injury might be a part of this game tonight. I think the Pacers win this handily.
Yeah, so it's a 7-point number in favor of Indiana. That line has ballooned. It was 5.5 for the opener of game number 3 with the status uncertain with OG Anunoby, and has worked even more. At this moment, Jalen Brunson does not have a points prop available on the FanDuel Sportsbook as I see it. Just our guy Tay, Isaiah Hartenstein, Josh Hart, and Miles McBride, otherwise known as Deuce. That is very intriguing in terms of this Friday morning update for game number 3 in Indy. A full-blown breakdown in terms of what the Knicks are going to have to do without OG and maybe a banged-up Brunson with CP, the franchise, later in this second hour and, of course, into hour number 3. But the nightcap tonight in the Twin Cities, the Timberwolves shocked the Denver Nuggets in each of the 2 games at altitude to start this series, winning outright as an underdog in game 1 and then handily by 20-plus in game number 2. It's game number 3 tonight in Minneapolis. It is a must-win game for Denver despite being a 4.5-point underdog on the road against Minnesota. Denver needs it. Do they get it?
And here's what you have to worry about, because there's always caveats here. We talk about, like, for myself, the Pacers. If Brunson is even a little bit hobbled, I think they get pounded tonight. But we don't know if he's going to be hobbled or not, or what that actually means. He played in the last game. Jamal Murray, who did play in the last game, still questionable for this game with that calf injury. Now, one thing that might have benefited you here, if you are looking at the Nuggets, is this extended layoff out of nowhere between games 2 and 3. You basically got the entire week off to rest that calf injury and also sort of circle around, huddle up, and say, all right, we didn't play our best basketball at home. Let's see if we can rally the horses here in Minnesota. But also take a look at some of the betting statistics from FanDuel. Only 55% of the tickets here currently coming in on the Minnesota Timberwolves. So a lot of belief here that the Denver Nuggets aren't done. And quite frankly, you don't have to win this game. You just have to cover. We'll see where that line gets, sitting at 4.5 now. I think that makes some sense. But I need to know a little bit more on the status of Jamal Murray before you blindly fire, for me at least, on the Nuggets.
He was fined $100,000 for throwing a heating pack at a referee in game number 2, but not suspended. So it's the injury availability that is more at question than, of course, anything off the court or on the court in that second game. It is a game that Denver, the reigning NBA champs, must have tonight and it's a 4.5-point spread in favor of Minnesota. We will continue to break down the doubleheader in the NBA playoffs throughout this show, but NBA offseason storylines already in Phoenix. Next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Draisaitl could easily, at plus money, get the first goal, the second goal, the fourth goal. There's a few guys here. Maybe the prop betting market is not a bad way to look here.
Clippers over the Mavericks. If I would have told you that score before the game, knowing that Kawhi Leonard wasn't playing, I would have really figured it would have been the other way around. But the NBA is just crazy.
In-game live, all access, only on SportsGrid.
DraftKings making a progressive move, I think, that most other companies are also going to do or have done in the past. Adding someone from the government or someone you would say in legislation to become their responsible gaming leader here. And in this case, her name is Lori Kalani.
And it'll be interesting to see if other companies try to follow suit in terms of hiring former lobbyists to head responsible gaming.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
After only one season in Phoenix, the Suns have fired Frank Vogel. Of course, a disappointing year overall for the Suns, who entered the season as one of the co-favorites to win the Western Conference title after the acquisition of Bradley Beal in the offseason to form a perceived big three in the Valley. They came up short each and every step along the way. Regular season swept in 4 by Minnesota to start the opening round of the playoffs as well. Donnie, were you surprised that Frank Vogel was fired, or was it the expected move in your mind out in the desert?
From the ownership group, which again is Matt Ishbia, as you're taking a look at when he took control of this team and immediately made changes and was working the phones himself to make sure he got Kevin Durant, it's not a surprise at all, because when you are this passionate as an owner right off the bat, you expect great things right off the bat, especially, Ben, when you have a talented roster like the Phoenix Suns have. Now, if you take a look at Frank Vogel throughout this process, we were just waiting for them to get to the playoffs and maybe the, talent would rise above any sort of issues that you had in the regular season as long as they were healthy. Frank Vogel would still have a job today if he probably even got to the second round. But you're not going to be able to hold your job by getting swept in round number 1 with that amount of talent. They're way over the luxury tax. You expect a return on your investment, and that's not a return on your investment getting embarrassed in round number 1. Frank Vogel is a really good coach, but in the landscape of professional coaches, you're hired to be fired. And if you have immense talent heading into the season where we're expecting from an ownership group to make a run for a championship and you fall that flat, it's no surprise that Frank Vogel's out. It's just the way the game works.
It is the way the game works in the NBA. Donnie is spot on. It's not that Bradley Beal was injured through most of the year and maybe is not the superstar that we all expected. It's not the depth outside of the big three was lackluster for a second consecutive season in Phoenix. It's not that, as Donnie and I very well knew, looking at the Suns each and every juncture of this season, continued to fall short of expectation. We continued to ask, is Phoenix ever going to rise to that level that we expected throughout this year? It's on the head coach. So a change is made. But let's look at why Frank Vogel was fired. Because again, one of the themes of this NBA campaign before the year even got underway was the idea from the odds perspective of the Big Four, the two teams out east, the Celtics and the Bucks, the two teams out west, the Nuggets and the Suns. Those four teams, Donnie, if you remember, and I know you do, entered this NBA season as the only four teams that had three digits in their price, less than 10-1 to win an NBA championship. In Phoenix and Denver, despite the Nuggets winning an NBA title a year ago, were the co-favorites to win the Western Conference. 51.5 was the win total. Phoenix went under that. Plus 130 to win the division. They came in second. Plus 270 again, that shortest number alongside the Nugs to win the Western Conference. Did not even win a single game in the postseason. And, of course, tied with Denver for that third shortest price behind the two teams from the East at plus 550 to win an NBA championship. Swept in 4 games in the opening round. That's why Frank Vogel lost his job. Is it fully his fault? No. But when you do not match expectation, when the expectation is sky high, somebody's got to pay.
Yeah, exactly. You take a look at the record, 49-33, which wasn't too far off of their win total, Ben, listed at that 51.5. But as we know in the NBA, nobody's really worried about the regular season. And we keep getting back to that point saying sooner or later this team is going to work itself out because you have too much superstar top-end talent, and you actually improved your bench from a year ago. So this was a better version of the big three heading into this year, getting Bradley Beal. And you say, okay, where can this work out? And I reiterate the same point left and right. You're trying to take a look at the Suns that if they just got healthy at the right time, which means play the final couple games of the season, get to the playoffs, that front-end talent is supposed to just win basketball games on its own. Forget about the head coach itself. Quite frankly, it doesn't matter if it was Frank Vogel or anybody else this year. The results probably would be the same. Which then, as we take a look till next year who that coach is going to be, and let's just say it is Budenholzer, I don't think the changes are going to be that drastic. Oh, now we're just going to snap into it. You played an unbelievably talented basketball team in round number 1. And yes, you got swept, which is never ideal at this point. But I don't think if you had Phil Jackson back from like the late, mid-1990s coaching your team, if it would even made a difference anyway at this point. The players are there. The superstars are what put people in the seats, not the coaching staff. So we knew as an ownership group, you made all these moves here. And you also talk Matish Bia saying, you know what? I don't even care about who we actually draft in what position. We'll burn those picks for more players here. So the onus is not necessarily going to be on the players themselves, but on the coach, because the coach is going to be the one that's easily removed from the equation, not the actual superstar players.
12 years as an NBA head coach for Frank Vogel and a winning record, 480 and 422. What?
He's a champion, too. I mean, just within the last 5 years.
Won a championship with the Lakers in the bubble back in the 2020 season, was fired 2 years later in L.A. Darvin Ham was there for 2 years. He's now gone as well. Frank Vogel will have a job somewhere pretty soon in the NBA coaching cycles. That's just how this thing works. Don't believe me? Look at who the next guy up in Phoenix is more than likely going to be. That's Mike Budenholzer, who, of course, was fired at the end of last year by Milwaukee, who won an NBA championship just a few years ago over who? Oh, yeah, the Phoenix Suns. Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN reporting yesterday Mike Budenholzer is emerging as the frontrunner to become the Phoenix Suns' next coach. He is already assembling a coaching staff. You know what made me chuckle when I read that line? You think Adrian Griffin is back on his staff? Might be a new assistant coach in Phoenix?
Why not? I mean, it makes some sense here. If you're comfortable with that move, you get back into the NBA. It's a great landing spot at this point, but also that's a high-pressure situation. So if Budenholzer going there, he's going to make a lot of good money, but that owner's going to sit him down day number 1. The expectations are championship or bust. Good luck on your season here, even though it didn't work out last year. And some of those guys, another year older, and quite frankly, Heading into next year's playoffs, what's the anticipation as the Big Three is going to be healthy for that run here, which was this year, and it didn't work out? That's a tough shit. Like, I want to ask you this question, Ben. If you were an up-and-coming NBA coach or even a veteran coach, it doesn't matter. What situation would you rather be in? The team that's looking to be on the ascent to see if you can build it, or they give you a ready-made championship team and say, get out there and go win a championship?
Yeah, I don't really know. I think it would be fun to build through that organization. By the way, our producer, Joe Frizo, correcting me. Adrian Griffin was in Toronto, not on Bud's staff in Milwaukee. Whoops, some things you learn. Thanks, Joe. Correct your countdowns and we'll be ready to go. Anyway, so as we keep it going around the early line on this Friday, I think Donnie asked a really good question. And what we've seen here, DRS, in the NBA is that maybe some of those cores that are built together are starting to have more success than the super team type of construction of a roster. And it makes what the head coach does a little bit more difficult. Because if you win, great. You had KD, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. But if you lose, see you, pal. Pack your bags after a year or two. And we'll see if all three of that perceived big three is back in the Valley to start next season, more than likely under Mike Budenholzer. But it just is an interesting conversation because we don't often point to a ton of head coaches around the NBA, at least in this current climate, and say this organization is this way because of that head coach. Really, Greg Popovich, maybe in San Antonio, and not as of late. And Eric Spoelstra in Miami, to name a few that come front of mind in terms of those head coaches responsible for how their organization truly plays.
Yeah, and also you're trying to take a look at, like, Vogel was brought in. There wasn't just a whim like, hey, let's try this coach out. Like, he's a very successful coach with an NBA championship just a couple years ago, and it didn't work out. Budenholzer, the same thing, an NBA championship coach, but more that veteran approach. So they're not going with that new upstart guy or maybe that J.J. Redick type, let's just get you in the coaching ranks. I think it'll work out. Because the one thing that we do know, superstars are obviously set in their ways. This head coach has to get along with that big three, and if he does, they could have success. They butt heads early on, then it'll get really interesting real fast next year for the Phoenix Suns.
It's really interesting when you look at the current active head coaches and how long they have been there. Not many more than about a decade in the NBA. More coming your way next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Drysdale could easily, at plus money, get the first goal, the second goal, the fourth goal. There's a few guys here. Maybe the prop betting market is not a bad way to look here.
Clippers over the Mavericks. If I would have told you that score before the game, knowing that Kawhi Leonard wasn't playing, I would have really figured it would have been the other way around. But the NBA is just crazy.
In-game live, all access, only on SportsGrid.
DraftKings making a progressive move, I think, that most other companies are also going to do or have done in the past. Adding someone from the government or someone you would say in legislation to become their responsible gaming leader here. And in this case, her name is Lori Kalani.
And it'll be interesting to see if other companies try to follow suit in terms of hiring former lobbyists to head responsible gaming.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
At a game number 3 tonight in Indianapolis, we are very pleased right now here on this Friday on the early line to welcome on CP the Franchise, the creator of Knicks Fans TV. You can see him also hosting on Sirius XM NBA Radio. CP the Franchise joins us here to get you set for game number 3 tonight in Indy and look back on the playoff run so far for the New York Knicks. CP, we appreciate the time. Thank you for being here on this Friday on the early line.
Ben, always a pleasure to be on with you, and Donnie, pleasure to connect for the first time, man. I love this show, so happy to be here.
Yeah, we are having a good time for sure, but probably not as good as you are throughout this postseason run for the New York Knicks. They have played 8 playoff games. They have won 6 of them. The opening round series victory against the Philadelphia 76ers, and now CP a 2-0 series advantage over the Indiana Pacers, winning both of the opening 2 games of this set inside Madison Square Garden. How would you describe the run so far in this playoff stretch for the Knicks?
I would say euphoric because, I say this all the time on my show. No one does storylines. No one does moments better than the New York Knicks, a franchise that has been without a title for 50 plus years. But time and time again, they just seem to come up with those magical moments that you talk about for days on end. In the first round of the Philly series is the Game 2 magic of Dante DiVincenzo. Then in Game 2, May 8th, 2024, Jalen Brunson leaves the game in the first quarter. This is on the anniversary of the Knicks winning their first championship when Willis Reed comes out of the tunnel. And what does Jalen Brunson do? He comes out of the tunnel in the second half, goes on a torrid pace, destroys the Pacers, puts the Knicks on his back, and wins that game. So you just can't make it up. So 2-0 lead. The fan base is electrified right now, and they are rallying behind this team.
CP, let's talk about doing it on the biggest stage, because so many times in the NBA we hear this, boy, we get up when we go to Madison Square Garden because it's the mecca of basketball here, and it takes a unique athlete to take that torch. Now, Carmelo Anthony was certainly beloved by the New York fan base, but never sort of got them over the mountaintop, but he was willing to say, I want to come back to New York. I want to be the centerpiece. Jalen Brunson chooses New York. We knew he was a great player coming from Dallas, but talk about on the biggest stage, night after night after night, with all that pressure, and he looks like an absolute god out there on the court. Talk to us about that New York atmosphere and why Brunson is absolutely thriving right now.
Man, so many reasons to be impressed with this kid. And just when you thought you couldn't be impressed anymore, he gives you more reason to just love what he's bringing to this game. Number one, it starts with his mental makeup. That comes from his family. He comes from a stable family, a great family. His father, a hard-working grinder in the NBA, an NBA journeyman who understood the tax, the grit, and the grind that it took to be successful. And so he took his experience and applied that to his son. And so with Jalen Brunson, you see the hard work, the dedication, the work ethic on display every single night to be the best and to hold himself accountable when he does not have good games. Look at his footwork out there. Look at the way that he dissects defenses. I mean, his adjustments to what defenses are giving him is second to none. And this is where superstars make their bread and butter. It is on the playoff stage. Yeah. And when guys are able to elevate their game against pressure defenses, mentally and physically worn down from the grind of a entire regular season, to elevate your game on that next stage, it's special, especially under the bright lights of New York City and Madison Square Garden. Jalen Brunson, 35 points, 8 assists in this series in the postseason. I mean, he's just been so spectacular for this team.
4 straight 40-plus point games entering game number 2. Only had 29 in the victory over Indiana. Probably would have had 40 if he did not miss the entirety of the second quarter in that second game. But injuries a concern, CP, as we move this series forward. Of course, the left hamstring injury sidelines OG Anunoby for game number 3. He had 28 points in the first 3 quarters of game number 2, arguably the best of his playoff career. How significant of an injury and an absence is this for the Knicks entering game 3 tonight in Indy?
Oh, it's huge. No question about it. And you were looking at OG Anunoby having his best game of the playoffs. And he had a couple of good ones in that Philadelphia series, as Donnie knows. But, to lose him at 28 points on that night, he was killing Pascal Siakams on both ends of the floor, taking him out of the game defensively. This is their only wing. I mean, the Knicks have needed a wing for so long. And the one that they got in OG Anunoby has been such a dynamo for this team in terms winning percentage and his impact on the court, it's a huge loss. It is no question a huge loss. I don't expect him back in this series. I think that the hope for the Knicks is that they can wrap this series up early. Maybe Cleveland gives Boston a little bit of trouble, and hopefully you can get OG Anunoby back later on in an Eastern Conference Finals. But that was a devastating blow to see him leave that game with the hamstring injury. And for the rest of the team, it's like, you're almost looking at, when will the shoe drop? Because these guys are playing so many minutes. Josh Hart, he's playing 48 minutes a night. Dante DiVincenzo, Jalen Brunson. So these guys are giving it their all, but it's just, you have to wonder, is it sustainable?
That next man up attitude, which New York, that crowd absolutely loves. You saw it in the regular season. Randall goes down, doesn't come back. OG Anunoby was down for some time, and it was really Brunson. Now, also, Brunson injury concerns coming into tonight. If I gave you a player to look at outside of Brunson tonight, who needs to step up for the New York Knicks?
It's going to be none other than Alec Burks, because with nobody left to go to, he is the guy that Tom Thibodeau is going to have to dust off. A guy who Tom Thibodeau has relied upon earlier in his first stint with the Knicks. Hasn't been as great when he was reacquired at the trade deadline. Alec Burks has to step up. He will likely come off the bench. He has to be that guy. He's got to be a microwave scorer for the Knicks. And if he can be that, I still like their chances in winning and getting past the Pacers in this series. Tonight is going to be their toughest one. Game 3 is always the toughest on the road, the first one on the road, but Alec Burks is my guy here.
All right, so quickly here, CP. Less than a minute left in this segment. A 7-point spread in favor of the Pacers in Indy tonight. Can we get a quick score prediction from you for game number 3 between the Knicks and the Pacers?
I'll go 114-112 Knicks. I think their ability to just play physical, wear the Pacers down on the boards, and the clutch factor. The Knicks have it. The Pacers don't. Rick Carlisle can complain all he wants. TJ McConnell can't save him. It is the Brunson burner time, and he's going to put on another show in Indy tonight.
CP the Franchise, the creator of Knicks Fan TV. You can also hear him on Sirius XM NBA Radio. CP, enjoy game number 3 on this Friday. I know that you certainly will. More on the early line comes your way up next, live right here on the SportsGrid Network.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Draisaitl could easily, at plus money, get the first goal, the second goal, the fourth goal. There's a few guys here. Maybe the prop betting market is not a bad way to look here.
Clippers over the Mavericks. If I would have told you that score before the game, knowing that Kawhi Leonard wasn't playing, I would have really figured it would have been the other way around. But the NBA is just crazy.
In-game live, all access, only on SportsGrid.
DraftKings making a progressive move, I think, that most other companies are also going to do or have done in the past. Adding someone from the government or someone you would say in legislation to become their responsible gaming leader here. And in this case, her name is Lori Kalani.
And it'll be interesting to see if other companies try to follow suit in terms of hiring former lobbyists to head responsible gaming.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Now, I'm not sure if you know this, but with so much NBA playoff action, doubleheader tonight, more in store on Saturday, the NBA draft lottery for the 2024 draft is on Sunday. Which way will the ping pong balls bounce maybe in your franchise's fortune if you are in that NBA draft lottery for 2024? Donnie, where were you when you learned the NBA draft lottery is on Sunday afternoon for this upcoming draft in June?
9:54 a.m. Eastern right here on Friday, May the 10th is when I just learned about that here. So get ready for an unbelievable segment of talking about the NBA draft. Let's get after it.
Now, listen, to
now,
your credit,
Sunday?
it was about Sunday. Yeah.
Now, hold on. All right, let me just get through this, though. Is it prime time on Sunday? Is that what we're talking about?
Joe? Friezo? 3 p.m.
3
No, not
p.m.?
prime time. Before the Knicks-Pacers game on Sunday. The schedule for Sunday in the NBA, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. Game 4's tip in Indiana between the Pacers and the Knicks. 8 p.m. Eastern, Game 4 in Minneapolis between the Timberwolves and the Nuggets. So it will be before the start of that doubleheader on Sunday, because I was asked by our producer, Joe Friezo, yesterday afternoon, that was May 9th, around maybe 1:30 p.m. Eastern time when the NBA draft lottery was. And I was like, it's always sometime before a playoff game, like a Tuesday or Wednesday night. He was like, incorrect. Sunday this year, Sunday, May 12th. So you spend Mother's Day with your mom, and then you hope the ping pong ball goes your way if your team is drafting in the lottery.
And by the way, me being a Sixers fan, this was usually our favorite day of the year, because in the process, this was the chances where we would actually get a chance to be like, hey, we won something as a Sixers fan, which turned into Ben Simmons and Jahlil Okafers of the world. So we don't like to go back to those unkind stories at this point. But some of these franchises will look forward to winning the ping pong lottery. And then you see who's actually going to be in that lottery and go like, ooh, can we push this back maybe a year or two if we win this and put it on layaway at this point?
Yeah, listen, interesting point there. So as we look at the lottery and as we look at the NBA draft, I can't remember the exact percentages. Is it 13.5% for the top 3 teams that have the most likely chance, or probably higher than 13.5%? That wouldn't make a ton of sense. Maybe it does.
Go with it.
Yeah, we'll roll with it. Call it 13.5%. So you have the 3 teams that finish with the 3 worst records, but unlike, what was it, 13? 14% for those top 3 teams. You can tell we're ready for the NBA draft lottery here on the early line. So the 3 teams that finish with the 3 worst records in the NBA have a 14% chance of getting that number 1 overall selection. Those 3 teams, the Pistons, wait, what? Why are there 4 teams then that have a 6-1 number on the FanDuel Sportsbook? Am I going crazy?
Get lucky. Might get lucky. You never know.
Hold on a second. Now we got to really dive in with some notes here. DRS, take it and filibuster for a moment as I try to find why there are 4 teams with the same 6-1 price when there should just be 3 teams with a 14% chance. Go.
Now some dude named Alexander Sarr is supposed to be the number 1 overall pick. Good luck with that for your franchise at this point. Number 2, can we stop with the Nikolas coming in from overseas? Nikola Topic out of Serbia? And how do you even pronounce that at this point? Is it a soft T? Like Jokic with the J is a soft? Opic? Like, you know what I mean? Is it that's what I need to know here. Right. Too many players in this, draft coming up that I'm not sure of. So I don't know what the rating's going to be for this draft. I don't think it's a great year all the way. So there you go.
All right, so we'll get to that in just a moment. We have the clarification. There are 4 teams, including the Blazers there at a 6-1 number, that have between a 13.2 and 14% chance. Portland, 13.2 for the number 1 overall pick, 13.3 for Charlotte, 14 apiece for both the Pistons and the Wizards. That's interesting. So you're slightly getting a better number on the Pistons and the Wizards at a 6-1 price if you do want to bet it. To Donnie's point, though, unlike last year, when it was the battle for Victor Wembanyama, that's why the draft lottery was so important. Could you earn the number 1 overall pick? Because if you did, it was the Wemby sweepstakes. This year's different. Yes, Alexander Sarr is his countryman out of France, but many NBA draft scouts, many general managers and front office execs around the association deem this 2024 class one of the worst we have seen in nearly 2 decades. Alexander Sarr plays his international basketball at the moment in the NBL. That's the Australian Professional League. He plays for Team Perth. We'll have plenty more for you around the NBA Draft Lottery on Monday. Hour 3 comes your way after the break.